Hi everybody, I'm down on the floor today and I'm by myself. Sarah's upstairs in a nice warm toasty room educating herself on more health related topics. Hopefully something that you all can get into. As you notice, I'm getting comfortable on a foam roller here. It's because this tutorial is going to be all about foam rolling or myofascial release, but basically we're going to cover how to do some rolling, and then rolling is best followed by a little bit of stretching. And we're going to talk a bit about a variation of rolling today. We're going to call it more dynamic work. So we're going to do some movement as we're on the foam roller today. And that kind of falls in line with a couple major pieces of literature recently, pop culture wise. TB12, Tom Brady's book, really focused on pliability, getting muscles to lengthen, to soften, and how that increases blood flow, lymph system, how that can kind of flush in and out of waste from the body as well. So those, as well as this book, which is a favorite of mine as well. It is the Back Pain Bible. It is by Christopher Dikowski. Both of them kind of touting using the foam roller, but in a mobile way. So we're going to go over that today. If you don't have a foam roller, I'm going to put a link into the YouTube, and I'm going to send out an email that you can purchase one through real easily. They're fairly cheap, and I even get a little bit of a kickback if any of that gets purchased through the link. If you don't have a foam roller, and you may have a ball or two at the house. So this is a lacrosse ball. This one really gets into some smaller areas with some more pressure for sure. Softball does a good job of hitting like a little bit of a wider area overall and still being pretty dense and strong. A tennis ball can work as well. But beyond that, I guess I don't have a whole lot of things that come to mind that are like really strong enough to handle you just rolling your body's weight and round enough to be doing that. If you think of something, let me know. Otherwise, let's get to this. We're gonna take a foam roller. I've got a half one. Some people got really long ones. The half one works a-okay as well. What I'm gonna have you do is start by sitting right on top of it. And you're gonna get onto your right butt. So get onto your glute there. I want you to put your right hand behind you, have your right leg out a little bit. Your left knee, this can be here for now, but you can find it in multiple locations, that would be okay. So the first thing with foam rolling in general is we're putting pressure into muscle groups to try to loosen adhesion within the muscle. To loosen that up then brings that same blood flow or lymph system capabilities that we were talking about. So a lot of times when we're talking about myofascial release, people will say stay here on this position and just hold it for 20 seconds, hold it for a minute until you feel the muscle release. There's a lot of different cues that you can give to somebody. Well, what I'm going to have you do is we're not going to spend necessarily a whole lot of time in each position, but we're going to move on a muscle group. So you still want to find a trigger point, which is somewhere that kind of speaks to you as a little bit more sore than usual. Then we're going to bring the knee up and we're going to extend the leg back down. So we're going to do this like 3 to 6 times on one side. That gives it hopefully a little bit of loosening. It should feel, like you're getting into a trigger point, somewhere that's speaking to you, giving you a little shock of pain. And then you can just move around through the glute. So anywhere from the top of the butt to the bottom of the butt, trying to find those points of adhesion or trigger points, doing a little knee in and out. We have other options like maybe moving the leg in or out, or even up and down, or even in circles, right? You move your foot around and have like that playful foot. These are all great ways to kind of increase the loosening of the muscle in more of a mobile manner, right? So we go onto the glute. I want you to just try and find multiple trigger points, work through that for a couple minutes, and then we're gonna make our way backwards. So put both your hands behind you. We're gonna roll onto the hamstring next. We're gonna get into that middle leg. So I wanna start on the middle of the leg. I like to put extra pressure, especially on my hamstring, so I'm gonna wrap my left leg around my right, and I'm gonna do a little bit of rolling here. Now, when I'm on the floor like this, it's not as easy for me to get super mobile. So I can move my ankle around, can maybe bend my knee a little bit here and there, but there's this really great, this is Christopher Dikowski by far, like great choice of just grabbing a stool and sitting on it, and then putting the foam roller on top of it and moving yourself forward and back on here. So let me give you a side angle here. I'm going to get onto that same middle of the hamstring, and now I can extend that leg and bring it down. Okay, so extension, bring it down. I can move back into a few new spots, kind of work through that. And I could also just move myself, repositioning that foam roller into any of those bright or tight areas. I can do some lifting here. I can maybe just do a little turning of the foot in and out. So that would be your best way to create kind of a mobile environment for loosening the hamstring. Or, you know, if you don't want to just be jumping up and down through things, you can keep the leg more straight and just work on that hamstring rolling through here with a little bit of that bottom ankle mobility and movement. Then we finish up on that leg by going down to the calf. Same thing, we're going to start with the foam roller in the middle. I like to put that extra pressure onto here. I'm going to lift my hips for even more pressure. Your hips could stay down on the floor. And now we're once again working through this. So ankle mobility, absolutely. We want to be able to kind of move around and get these muscles to be working through the tension. Okay? So you would spend something like a minute or two on that side. And that really addresses the back of our leg, right? After that, I'm going to have you flip it around and address the front of the leg. So let me do that, and I'll keep you facing my right side here. I'm going to place this once again into the center of my quad, the center of my thigh up top here. I'm going to get into a position where my elbows are under my shoulders, and then my other leg, I'm just keeping it on the floor for now. Now, if you wanted to make things a little more challenging, you could bring that leg up and put more pressure. But then I'm going to do some heel kicks once I'm here. So generally, the quad is one of the areas that I feel a lot more tension. I can feel that the muscles are tighter, they don't want to loosen, so I might spend more time just working on the quads. Generally I do, and I'm going to be going all the way up into the hip flexor here. So wherever I feel like I can find those kind of tight and bright areas, if I can do some heel lifts through this, I know that I can start loosening some tighter areas that might be creating imbalances in the body. So you work through that. You basically want to work from just above the knee, okay? Don't go onto the kneecap, all the way up to the hip. And that's another key point I want to make as well, which is when we're on the hips or that, don't put the pressure on the bone itself, right? So if you just got a really bright spot, but it's because you're just sitting on bone, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for muscle, and we're trying to loosen muscle. So don't spend time on bone, move it around a little bit up or under that, so that you can specifically address the muscle groups, not the bone. Okay, so then after that, a little bit of upper body that I like to go through. I'm gonna start out with kind of the top of the abs, and it's a little funky to do it on these. So we're gonna use one because I'm making the assumption that not everybody has all this equipment around them, but ideally your best movement is to get a softball and to use this to get right at the bottom of the rib cage. So once again, we're not on bone, we're going just below the bone of that rib cage. We're gonna put some pressure on it, and we're gonna do a little movement with the top half of the body. And we're gonna think like yoga, kind of low cobra style. So if I'm here, I'm gonna put it on one side of my abs. You know, you got that kind of line right down the belly button. You're gonna breathe in and lift the chin up, and then you're gonna breathe out and kind of bring the head down to the floor. Breathe in, lift, breathe out, bring it down. So if I'm using the foam roller, then this is basically gonna hit both spots on either side of the core kind of equally. Like I said, this one doesn't fit as perfectly well for folks, but you can still find a little bit of that psoas muscle through here. So I'm gonna get the elbows underneath you. I'm gonna put my legs down into the floor. I'm gonna breathe in and arch my back up, which creates press here. And then I'm gonna exhale and kind of round the head and the shoulders down to the floor. I'm gonna breathe in again and exhale. Same thing I'm teaching you with stretching and with our unwinding time. If you could do a longer exhale through the breath, you can really start to give your body better signals that it's unwinding, that the parasympathetic nervous state is taking over. So I like to do just the top and the very bottom when I'm using the foam roller. Okay, so second thing we're gonna do is the very bottom, and I'm basically gonna go right onto my hip line and my pelvis, and I'm gonna find just a little bit of rolling up and down. And when I find an area that speaks to me big time, this is where I'm staying. Okay, I'm creating more pressure, so I've lifted the legs a bit here. And now the same breathing pattern, I'm gonna breathe in and arch up, and then I'm gonna breathe out and bring the head and shoulders down. Doing just a few breaths here, somewhere between 3 and 6 maybe. All right, and same thing, I might just move myself up a little bit if I have some additional sensitive areas here and do some additional spots. if you're using the softball on this, this is where you get to have some fun and to get into some deeper areas. So you could start just kind of in that center position, just to the right or just to the left, and then you can just work your way down the under parts of that rib cage till you get to the obliques, and then you're gonna sit just kind of right onto various outer parts of the obliques. So I'm kind of in between my rectus abdominis and the obliques here, and I'm gonna do that same breathing technique. Breathing in, lifting, and then breathing out and coming down to the floor. So that can be a great way to really get like some pretty tight muscles. You think about the front of our body, we are always kind of slouching here. These things are tightening up and pulling us down. If you can breathe into that, you are gonna feel some release. You're gonna probably feel a lot of those bright, sharp, or I shouldn't say sharp, but those bright responses to being into areas that really aren't used to having pressure put on them. Okay, last up, we're gonna go over the back on here. So I'm gonna take that same foam roller, and we're basically just gonna do a back roll. We're not gonna get too fancy with this. What I'm gonna have you do is just kind of bring your butt off the floor, take your hands, cross them at your shoulders, and you got my knees bent here. I'm gonna sink down towards my heels so it starts going up. I'll walk my feet out just a little bit so I can get higher to just about the bottom of the neck. I've opened, or by closing my arms here, I've opened my shoulder blades behind me so I can get into a little bit of those tight muscles that sit right under the shoulder blades. So I've gone between the low back to the thoracic, and even maybe just the tiniest bit to the cervical spine. So I'm going up and down. And find some breathing here, just kind of a steady in, and then a steady, nice long out. Awesome, everybody. One bonus one I will give you real quick will be working on your chest and shoulders. Once again, another area that's really kind of tight and compacted in the front. So what we can do with that is face the floor again. This time I've kind of changed my positioning, so I'm gonna get kind of the top of the chest involved in here. So it's not directly placing on my shoulder, but it's just a little bit to the inside. So I've got pressure at the top part of the chest. I'm gonna raise my arm up, move it around a little bit. Okay, I might even open my hand in and rotate it in and out through there. And once again, you could play with a few of those angles, and if somewhere speaks to you a little bit more so than the other, that is cool. How about one more? Last bonus one that you could do on the inside of that leg is we're here, you could get into kind of a flat position with the leg 90 degrees out from you, and then I can do some kicks and then bringing it back in. So I can work through this. Once again, this is one of those really tight, bright, saucy, spicy areas to get through. So do that, work on your breathing as you go through it, work on mobility through your myofascial release and your foam rolling at home. And then give me some subscriptions, some likes, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. Hope this can be something that you can add to your repertoire of success during the COVID Games Survivor Series. Bye.